very much, Terry. And I was reminiscing about I did my undergraduate work at U of T, and of course we always used to come here and drink. So that was my last time that I was in this pub, which was a very long time ago. In any case, I just want to explain a little bit about the organization that I work for, Canadian Federation of Independent Business, if you're not familiar with it. We are the largest small business organization in Canada. We have about 110,000 members across the country. They're all privately held Canadian companies in every nook and cranny. Something we do as an organization, I'm going to talk a little bit about this tonight, is before we take a position on any policy issue, because our main raison d'etre is advocacy, we poll our members, and we have repeatedly polled our members on various trade issues over the years. Of course, most recently CETA, because that's been the most recent trade agreement. And it was interesting for me from a personal standpoint. When I first joined CFIB, and I was their chief economist at the time, and it was late 1987. And you might recall the 1988 federal election was really fought on the Canada-US FTA, free trade agreement at that time. So when I joined CFIB, I rapidly jumped into the fire of public debate about that particular issue. And it was interesting, just by way of background, it was interesting at the time that a lot of people that were opposing that free trade agreement represented it as a corporate, a pro-big corporation thrust, and it was really the big corporations that were in favor of it, and they were in favor of it, there was no question about that. But I think what surprised a lot of people was how very supportive the small, privately held company constituency was as well. They really saw a lot of small firms are active in trading, both importing and exporting with other countries. Of course, the US were still obviously the most integrated with that economy of any other one in the world. And there was very, very strong support at that time for the FTA and then NAFTA when Mexico joined it subsequently. And now, of course, the reason, you may know this, but the reason that a lot of these sort of regional trade agreements like CETA, there's another one called the Trans-Pacific Partnership that's in a more preliminary stage, at least for Canada, than CETA with Europe. But anyway, there's an awful lot of bilateral, multilateral, regional trade agreements being pursued these days by pretty much every country in the world, because sadly the multilateral it used to be called GATT, as you may recall, way back in the day. Most recently, the WTO, the World Trading Organization. Those negotiations, which involved a lot of countries, basically started to break down. They did not, the negotiations went on for years and years and years, and agreements couldn't be reached. And countries, and Canada was one of them, but by no means the only one, decided, let's do our own agreement with whatever country, whatever group of countries like the EU, and that way we'll at least get the job done instead of waiting years and years and not getting a result out of the World Trade Organization, which is unfortunate because I think the truly multilateral approach is preferable instead of all these kind of deals all over the place. But again, I think it just became much too much of a roadblock, and so these sectoral deals are what went forward. And that, of course, the most recent one for Canada was CETA. In terms of the EU and the agreement that we've reached with them, it's true that these things, they're massive in terms of, and I'm glad we've got a trade lawyer, because I'm sure he can be much more eloquent than myself on the massive, very bureaucratic nature of these kinds of agreements. They get into nitty-gritty like you wouldn't believe, and Europe is very, very bureaucratic. I've done some work with an international small business organization over the years, and I thought we had bureaucracy in Canada until I went to Europe. It's quite something. And so, the complexity of this trade agreement with them is quite extensive, shall we say. And a lot of details have yet to be really ironed out. But I still do believe, once again, at CFIB, we did survey our members on what they felt about trade with Europe, and did they favor lowering tariffs and all the things that are included in CETA, and they came back with a resounding yes. Quite a few of our small businesses already were active traders with various parts of Europe, so they had experience, and they felt that whatever it was they were offering, and whether it was goods or services or whatever, they felt they would have, with tariffs dropped, they would become more competitive in that market, and therefore they could expand their businesses, hire more people, and so on. Most analyses that are credible of the free trade agreement with the U.S. and then subsequently NAFTA, including Mexico, have confirmed that they were beneficial to all of the countries involved in different ways. And dealing with a country, or dealing with a bloc like the EU, certainly they're very much, you know, they have a lot of similarities to our economy. Certainly if we were dealing with, say, China, that would be a radical difference comparing, say, Canada and you know, the institutions we have, how we operate with a country that was really in a very different part of its evolution. Not so with Europe, you know, the European market. If anything, we should be very competitive in the European market. So time will tell. The other challenge we have, of course, is that Europe's got a lot of problems right now. They've had some, you know, near bankrupt governments. They've had, you know, the financial meltdown of 2008 affected them very, very, very hard. And so a lot of critics are saying, well, why are we doing trade with Europe when their economies are all in the tank? But hopefully the worst is over. It looks like the worst is over with a lot of countries, including the European countries. And as they come out of the worst of the most recent recessions, hopefully Canada can find some opportunities there that we haven't to date. And it's very, I guess, to try to, some of the specifics, I don't know, one thing I've always found, and I don't know how many times you've traveled in France, but I think if only we get more French cheese here, that in and of itself might justify the trade agreement with Europe. French cheese is so good. Anyway, but no, they're naturally, it's two-way trade that's going to change, that's going to increase. And in an ideal world, of course, both countries, both blocs, I guess, will benefit from that. So we have seen a lot of support from small business for this agreement. We'll see how it all unfolds because it's impossible. There's all kinds of estimates about, oh, it's going to mean so many jobs, it's going to mean, you know, so much more on our GDP and so on and so forth. But a lot of factors come into play. And although I certainly do believe trading arrangements like this are much more positive than not having them, and the fact that also other countries around the world are all very proactively pursuing such agreements. In Canada, we've traditionally been such a trading nation, we would be foolish not to be in that game as well ourselves. So I'll just close off there, and I look forward to any further discussions. Thanks.